Well, we are now on to our fan favorite shout outs and rants. Jonathan Armstrong, do you have a shout out and or rant for us today?
I have a shout out, thanks, Tom. It's to the author Eric Carle. Now, he unfortunately passed away since the last time I was on the podcast. He was, of course, born in Syracuse, New York in 1929. And I didn't know this, but Carle had quite an interesting life. The family moved from Syracuse back to Germany, where the family was from, in 1935. Just in time for Carl's father to be conscripted and sent as part of the Nazi forces to the Russian front. He didn't get back till 1947, and he had PSD and he was emaciated. Meantime, Carl, aged 15, had been conscripted again into the German forces to dig the Siegfried Line. On the first day on the line, 3 people around him died. And the family wanted to escape Germany after the war and came to the US. Carl arrived in 1952 with just $40 in his pocket. And he came to the US to escape war and all the horrors of war he'd seen, and was then conscripted into the US Army for the Korean War. So needless to say, he had a Chumbawamba type life. He was continually knocked down. But why do we know him as an author? You might not remember him as an author, but I guarantee that almost everyone on the podcast will have read one of his books, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Since he published it in 1969, it's sold on average a copy per minute globally since 1969. And I didn't know this, but he was concerned about young children and saw the fear in a lot of them as they transitioned from home life to school. And he thought that he had life experiences through seeing the horror of war that could help them through it. And that's apparently why he wrote The Very Hungry Caterpillar. It showed the metamorphosis, the transition from caterpillar and the fear of stopping becoming a caterpillar, but the joy of then becoming a butterfly. So I thought, shout out to Eric Carle, again, passes the Chumbawamba test. He got knocked down, he got up, and he tried to help others along the way. So rest in peace, Eric Carle.
Jay Rosen, do you have a shout out and or rant?
I have a tongue-in-cheek shout out. Will 8 be enough? To jump on Jonathan's nostalgia trip, I referenced the late 1970s family comedy starring Dick Van Patten. It was about a widower who was raising 8 kids. To switch to the present now, it seems that Tampa Bay Bucks quarterback Tom Brady, owner of 7 Lombardi trophies, 6 with the Pats and 1 with the Bucks, still needs motivation to compete. This week, Brady turned his ire on those other 31 teams who did not bid for his services when he was a free agent in 2020. Sisyphus had his rock. Tom Brady fabricates imaginary chips to carry on his shoulder. Here's looking forward to February 2021, when Brady will let us know whether 8 will be enough. Tom?
I am going to shout out today, and I'm going to shout out to UK lawyer Neil Gerrard. And Neil Gerrard is currently embroiled in an imbroglio trial in the United Kingdom, where his former client, One Eurasian Natural Resources Corp, ENRC, has sued him and the Serious Fraud Office, alleging collusion by Mr. Gerrard and the Serious Fraud Office that he sent attorney-client privileged information to the SFO without the knowledge of his client. But that's not the reason I'm giving him a shout out. It's because in the age of Donald Trump and misinformation, Mr. Gerrard has given us a new term that we can use. When confronted with text messages that he had sent to the Serious Fraud Office and denied in court, first of all, he denied in court he had sent text messages to the SFO. Then counsel for ENRC presented those text messages to him. His answer was, quote, "I suffered from several bouts of global amnesia," end quote. Now, this is not alternative facts. This is not Kelly Conway talking about massacres that happened or didn't happen. This is a new phrase, a new term, and one that we should all fully embrace, because it's not just Texas amnesia, it's not just US amnesia, it's global amnesia. So the next time that you are experiencing perhaps a bout of senior a moment, or where you just can't think of the answer, or you're presented with text messages which you have denied sending under oath, well, now you have your answer. Global amnesia. Thank you, Neil Gerrard. Karen.
I have a wholly unrelated to the SEC shout out, and that is mostly just because today of all days, I'm most excited for the release of the second season of Ted Lasso. For those who haven't seen the first season, I cannot do anything but recommend this show. It is about a guy who is an American sort of football coach that gets recruited to the UK to coach English football, and all of the hijinks and ridiculousness and sort of jokes about the English are all part of it. But it's actually an unbelievably feel good, sort of uplifting show in a way that you would not expect, and in a way I don't think you find as much on television these days. So I am very much looking forward to that as both a soccer and somewhat football fan, not a Tom Brady fan, but I'm looking forward to that new show. That's my shout out today. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Matt Kelly, hitting clean up today in shout outs and rants. Do we have conspiracy, Matt, or do we have a shout out?
We have a shout out, really, I think, today. I want to give a shout out to several businesses first. Two restaurants. One is a restaurant and bar in Atlanta called Argosy, and another one is up here in Boston called Jacques. And there are several other restaurants around the country, I'm sure, and they get a shout out because they have started requiring proof of vaccination if you intend to go and enjoy their services. And I am shouting out to them for doing the most obvious thing that companies should be doing. And we have all seen, I am sure, these headlines about the resurgent Delta virus now that is causing trouble all over this country. And it is high time for many more businesses and the government to get serious about saying, if you are an adult who willfully chooses not to get vaccinated, you have to stay home and you don't get full participation in this society. Now, if you're not getting vaccinated because you have a medical reason or a religious reason or because you are a child under the age of 12, I will put them aside. It's not their fault and they should still be able to participate in society. But for adults who are willfully turning a blind eye to public health and willfully taking a risk with themselves and other innocent people, no, you should not be allowed to fly in a plane. You should not be allowed to go to the movies. You should not be allowed to go to a conference. You should not be allowed to go to restaurants. You should be allowed to sit home and be sick by yourself. This is how we screw it up. We have done a fantastic job beating back the COVID virus. We have wonderful vaccines that are perfectly safe for pretty much everybody. And I don't understand why they're not mandatory for anybody who is able-bodied and healthy enough to take them. We should be. I hope the FDA will finally give final approval to all the vaccines where they already have emergency use. And that could give businesses and school districts a much stronger hand to say, no vaccine, get lost. Because that is what we need to say in this country and around the world if we are going to knock this virus down once and for all. So kudos to all the businesses who are starting to take this as seriously as it needs to be taken.